Mercedes have found a huge upgrade during the testing days, an upgrade they teased us with in the launch renderings of their new W15 Formula One car. This upgrade showed an additional upper rear wishbone leg to its front suspension, and it might sound like a minor detail, but it actually is a huge boost for the team. This big upgrade, which isn't seen anywhere else on the grid, could potentially give Mercedes the edge at multiple tracks. How, you might think? We'll fill you in. At the time of the release of the pictures, it was thought that the Brackley-based team had done it as a diversionary pre-season ploy to put competitors off guard about what it was truly doing. After all, teams are not permitted to install redundant suspension components on their cars. However, the photograph actually revealed a clue to a new flexible arrangement integrated into the Mercedes chassis and front suspension this year. This design enables the team to adjust the inboard end of the suspension leg to better meet the requirements for the best setup around each circuit. Most teams have some degree of freedom in this region, although it is normally measured in millimeters rather than the several centimeters that the solution on the W15 provides Mercedes. It's difficult to see at first, but when looking closely, the hatch on the side of the W15's chassis is bigger than we are used to seeing. It allows for the adoption of various wishbone configurations, with each resulting in distinct kinematic and/or aerodynamic responses depending on the position. During the pre-season test, Mercedes had the rear leg of the upper wishbone at a higher mounting position on days 1 and 2. However, it placed it in a lower position for the third and final day to assess its qualities. This change modifies the arm's longitudinal position, moving it forward compared to the position utilized during the first 2 days of the test. The arrangement employed on day 3 of the test brings the rear legs of the upper and lower wishbones much closer together, making the pair likely more effective as a combined aerodynamic surface in this configuration. James Allison said the following about the changes. "We were changing the anti-dive level on the front suspension. That's exactly the sort of change that you really can't do between runs and practice sessions. Useful to get that done, and get a bunch of runs on it today, compare it to yesterday, and make our decisions." This is not an entirely new idea. Teams have already investigated strategies to connect these surfaces aerodynamically. The McLaren MP431 is one example that comes to mind. In that case, McLaren's chassis lacked the versatility required to handle variations in the location of the wishbone, hence a static arrangement was used throughout the season. However, the goal is not only to improve aerodynamics. The second apparent feature of Mercedes' multiple mounting point system that we must discuss is anti-dive, which offers more or less of these features depending on whatever position it selects. This might give the German company an advantage in a number of circuits while others are trapped into a less optimal layout. While the W15 design is the first time we've seen a team use this setup, Mercedes has previously thought outside the box when it comes to suspension layout. In reality, we just have to look back to last season's Monaco Grand Prix, when the team launched a B-spec stylistic update to the W14. On that occasion, it added a higher mounting point for the upper wishbone's lead arm. While the modifications were successful, they did leave some scar tissue because the original mounting points remained. This certainly comes with a weight penalty, as would the W15. Nonetheless, the team hopes that the flexibility on offer will exceed the need for enhanced structural integrity around 2 mounting places. Furthermore, with more choices available, the car's setup window should expand, making it simpler to customize the car to the peculiarities of a certain track. And that reason is exactly why it's such a genius small upgrade. As it provided huge flexibility to the team, pair this with track data and you can create the optimal setup every time. F1 TV's Sam Collins chipped in on the new revelation. That angle between these two sections is absolutely huge, and the reason we've got so excited about this is this. You cannot simply change a part of a modern Formula One car just like that. You can't just modify the front suspension and bolt a different bit on. You actually have to change the chassis of the car, and it's a really big job. Mercedes clearly have designed this new car with this in mind. I think James Allison played this engineering job down a little bit. This same James Allison, who is undoubtedly proud about his team's achievements, also provided an honest assessment of the pecking order ahead of the 2024 season, as this is just one upgrade and won't win you the championship all of the sudden. So, with pre-season testing being complete, team and fans alike are always attempting to determine where everyone stands. This is not an unusual activity, since it is an annual occurrence in the Formula One world. However, anticipation for projecting teams' success during the winter remained high. As it stands, Red Bull is the favourite. All signs imply that they retained their edge during the winter. The question is how huge the gap has gotten, and which teams will be their main competitors. Ferrari wowed the field throughout the 3 days of Bahrain testing, both in qualifying and race simulations. The SF24's tyre management is possibly the most important revelation, as this has been a problem in previous seasons. Mercedes is a tough team to position since it maintained a low profile during the Sakir testing. Having said that, James Allison has provided a refreshingly honest examination of where the W15 ranks in the pecking order. Red Bull are in front. If you look at their race run, it's quite fierce. Behind, there are several strong teams in the chasing back. Ferrari seems okay. Mercedes seem okay. Alonso just did a pretty fair run today. That would be my guess of the 3 chasers. In precisely what order, I'm not sure. I think we looked slightly better on the long runs, but a little behind Ferrari on the single lap stuff. I think a lot will depend on who has a good week between now and then. This analysis puts Mercedes somewhat above where most have positioned the Silver Arrows thus far. Overall, the opinion is that Ferrari is second fastest. However, the German constructor has obviously masked most of their speed. Although this applies to most teams, it appears to be particularly important for Toto Wolff's people. Mercedes is on the defense after getting off to a bad start last season. However, history has shown that dismissing them is foolish, even when they are at their weakest. Next weekend, they can take advantage of relatively modest expectations and contend for the podium. But Mercedes are for once looking happily forward to a race weekend, especially now that the new concept seemed to have worked out during testing. This led to Mercedes claiming that the accurate correlation it has witnessed between the wind tunnel and the track with their 2024 Formula One car is a stark contrast to this time last season. Following its first winless season since 2011, Mercedes has committed to a comprehensive revamp with its next challenger, the W15. The German marque had chosen to keep the Zeropod option at the start of last season, but a difficult winter forced it to forsake that bold innovation. Mercedes stated at the outset that its major goal was to create a more gentle car that eliminated the spiteful rear-end characteristics of its capricious W14 model. And it seems that they have done just that. As Lewis Hamilton and George Russell believe, the W15 is nicer to drive than its stubborn predecessor, albeit acknowledging that Red Bull remains out of reach. Allison has reiterated such remarks, stating that Mercedes is now in a better position to focus on improving performance rather than fixing a troublesome car. We were in a world of pain this time last year, and while we're certainly not the leading car right now, we at least have an honest, well-behaved thing that can put in decent long-run pace, and I think we've got a bit more work to do on the single laps, but it's definitely a much better born car than the year before, he went on to say. Mercedes' failed attempt to optimize a small sidepod construction with the most recent ground effect rules was thwarted by an inability to repeat positive simulations on the track. Allison, on the other hand, claims that the Brackley-based squad has surmounted such obstacles and that the W15 has performed as expected throughout testing. One of the nice things about the car, and quite a sharp contrast to the year before where we can change a thing and the car responds, and it responds pretty much like the sims say it should respond, and that gives us a lot of confidence that you can then make changes in the factory, in the virtual world, bring them here and expect them to work, he said. So, yeah, that's an encouraging thing for us. Ferrari, like Mercedes, had pursued a redesigned car for 2024 with a concentration on correcting the race pace issues that plagued its ambitions last season. While Allison thinks his previous squad appears good on a single lap, he believes Mercedes has a little advantage over the Italian marque under race circumstances, especially due to the nature of the W15 and its wide range of setup due to the new upgrades they brought over the winter. What are your thoughts? Can Mercedes keep up this year? Let us know in the comments down below.